Got a lot of items to take up, so let's get started. And our first bill today is Senate Bill 2372. This is the Hospital Sustainability Grant Program. I'm going to recognize Senator Blackwell in just a moment to explain it. One of the things that I wanted to, I'll just state briefly, is on this program, which would involve some appropriations to assist with some hospital measures. Senator Blackwell and I discussed some trying to come up with some language that would be appropriate for making hospitals also be, this is not just a handout program, but hospitals are going to have to take certain measures to keep themselves viable, so that this isn't just a one and done type program. But with that stated, Senator Blackwell, you want to explain the gist of this bill?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill before us, the Hospital Sustainability Grant Program, is part of the bill package. It's coming from the Senate to try to assist the hospitals and others working in healthcare since they struggled so much through this COVID process that we had. But basically what this bill does is it provides some relief through a grant, one-time grant payment to the hospitals. The bill as it is written contemplates using about roughly $80 million. We're also, from a Medicaid standpoint, of also trying to increase the reimbursement to the hospitals. So under this particular bill, the way it's written is each rural hospital less than 100 beds with an ER will receive a base payment of $500,000. Each critical access hospital with an ER will receive a base payment of $350,000. Each hospital that has greater than 100 beds with an ER will receive a base payment of $1 million. Each hospital dedicated to providing freestanding psych, freestanding rehab, or long-term acute care will receive a base payment of $500,000. Then after that, the remaining funds, and I think it's about $25 million, will be distributed amongst all the hospitals based upon the licensed beds. And so anyway, this bill is still actually a work in progress. As I said, it initially contemplates spending about $80 million, but if it's possible, we would like to try to increase that. But that's just of the bill, and I'll yield for any questions.
And for further explanation, Senator Blackwell, this could possibly utilize ARPA funds, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is related to some of the COVID issues.
That's right. And okay, one of the things that we want to do is we want to hear from the hospitals what they're going to do for moving forward in the future as far as trying to prevent situations like have occurred.
Okay. And you want to offer reverse repealer too?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion on the reverse repealer motion by Senator Blackwell? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Further discussion on the bill. Any questions? Senator Suber, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarity, you stated that these hospitals that have emergency rooms would qualify for these funds.
Yes.
Now, if there's a hospital that does not have an ER, is there any money available for them? And the reason I ask that is, you know, I do have a hospital that, for whatever reason, shut their ER down a few years ago. And
which hospital is that, Senator Suber?
Trace Regional in Houston.
Trace Regional?
I don't know, Senator Suber.
They would
we'll look into it.
They would qualify under this program.
Okay. Well, like I said, just reading this and just based on the explanation, I was just curious.
Yeah, but this, let me reiterate, I think this one's is still a work in progress. This is Senator Blackwell and I've discussed, this has got to be something other than just a program. I mean, some of it's related to COVID, and obviously the ARPA funds could apply, but some of this has got to be based on some structural changes that might have to take place within the various hospitals to make sure that they're on solid footing going forward. But Trace would qualify based on the information that we have.
Appreciate it.
Other questions or comments? Senator Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Blackwell. So is it, do they have criteria on how the money can be spent?
No, sir, it's not in this bill here.
Okay, so they can actually use the money maybe for basically anything, basically, just trying to help them offset some of the debt.
That's correct. Just like we've given money to other agencies or groups, we haven't specified how they're spend those funds, and we're not doing so here either.
All right, did also, Mr. Chairman, did I hear you say that this was something that we're gonna be going forward, or is it just a one-time amount of money?
This is a one-time deal.
Oh, just a one-time deal? Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Blackwell.
Senator Butler. Any other questions? Not Senator Blackwell.
Title sufficient, do pass.
Hang on one second. We got a question from the other Senator Butler.
I would think so. I mean, they have an emergency room.
Okay, thank you, Senator Butler. If no other questions, Senator Blackwell, your motion.
Title sufficient, do pass committee sub.
The motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2511, the Tourism Recovery Fund. This is related to ARPA funds, and I'll recognize Senator Polk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you remember last year in the ARPA bills, we gave considerable amount of funds to the EOMs in the state, and it has turned into quite a successful program. This bill only brings forward the code sections necessary to make, to try to do that again or make any changes that we see necessary. There are no questions. Title sufficient to pass.
Any questions?
And that would be committee sub.
If there are no questions, the motion from Senator Polk is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Moving on to Senate Bill 2088, bill filed by Senator Phillingain dealing with district attorneys increasing their office operating allowance. They have been at the same amount for approximately 20 years. And the proposal that was made was actually to jump it up from 35 to 70,000. After some discussion and looking at this, what I would like to offer by way of committee sub is moving that from 35 to 50,000 per office. The approximate cost of that is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 a year. It's not relatively not a large amount of money, but actually 345,000 is the exact amount. So it's not a large amount of money, but it would allow them, as we're all dealing with inflation, and since they've never had a change in that in about 20 years, I think it's an appropriate measure to help the district attorneys with their office allowance. Or is there any question about that proposal, the committee sub? If not, motion from Senator. Thank you, Senator Jackson. The motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is the Mississippi Early Intervention Pilot Project Act, and I'm going to call on Senator Boyd. Is she here? Well, I thought she was going to be here for that, but we will skip that one then and go to Senate Bill 2371, and I'll call on Senator Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This, you'll remember from last year, similar to what Senator Polk was stating earlier, we had, as we passed off the floor of the Senate, the American Rescue Plan Act for Nurse Allied Health Workforce Development and Retention Act. This bill includes some of the same exact tenets we had in that bill. That bill at the end of ARPA negotiations was not one of the pieces that was taken up. So the first part of this in Section 3 would establish a program for the CJCs to pay towards eligible expenses, including equipment, curricular, remote learning, and other expenses for nursing programs. The new element of this that I'm excited to hear about and to tell you about has to do with new residencies and fellowships. You know, right now in discussions, UMMC has done a great job with their residency and fellowship programs. They are at capacity. And what we're hearing is that if we can establish some more residency programs at our smaller hospitals, we could perhaps be able to get doctors who are in finishing their training in there for residency and fellowship programs, with the intent that if they became kind of connected to these smaller hospitals, they have, in studies I've seen, greater than a 90% chance of actually staying with the hospital. And so that's the second part of the bill there. And so the suggested number that I've heard was up to perhaps maybe $20 million as a combined amount for this program. That'll be, of course, a different bill, and a percentage of that, perhaps maybe 5 or so million, would be devoted to the residency program, the rest to the nursing type of program. That's a brief explanation on the bill. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Senator Parker? Any members have questions? If not, Senator Polk makes the motion. Title sufficient to pass. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, we will go to Senate Bill 2373, and I'll recognize Senator Parks for an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to remind everyone, this is the same bill we passed last year. This is utilizing the ARPA funds. And if you'll recall, this is a direct relationship to the shortage that we're facing with the nurses. This was also designed for the applicants to be a resident of the state as well. It would provide that the first come, first served basis. It's this monies would be administered by the Mississippi Post-Secondary Education Financial Assistance Program. And this would make the awards for the recipients would be a maximum of $6,000 for each of them for each employment year that they have, up to 3 years. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Senator Turner Ford.
I think we were at 6 million. No, we were not. This bill did not pass. The House bill passed, and the way that it was written, it could not be administered. No, there was no. Okay. If no other questions,
Any other questions? If not,
title sufficient to pass.
the motion is title sufficient to pass. Committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2487, and this is a proposal for the dual credit scholarship program. I've talked to Senator Parks about this too, and don't know where we're going to end up on this. I think there is some appetite for to look at something that works well for the K through 12 programs and community colleges, to make sure that I've heard stories from both sides about, either we're charging too much, not enough. How do we get this done? Obviously, there's some issues. For every dollar we spend on the scholarship program, that's a dollar less for some other educational programs or programs in general. But I would like to keep this alive. And I would, Senator Polk, I think, is going to offer a motion.
Yes, I'd like to offer an amendment to the bill that puts a reverse repealer in.
Okay. So keeping this alive, the motion would be to add a reverse repealer. Any discussion about that? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And then back on the bill, I think, Senator Parks, anything else you want to add to this? I believe most people know what the overall intent of the bill is, but there are some particulars in here that are being proposed about the up to 15 dual credit semester hours being
Right.
one big one. And what else is in there that?
Yeah, it would allow up to 40% of the college hour tuition, again, allowing up to 15 semester hours while in high school. And this was also eligible for high schools, homeschool, private, and IHL.
Okay, questions of committee members? Any questions? If not, Senator, your motion.
Title sufficient to pass.
A motion, title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Moving along, next, Senate Bill 2495. I'm going to call on Senator Sparks to explain this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 2495 is similar to legislation we've passed a couple times on our end of the hall. This deals specifically with county jails. It does two things, and I've actually passed out something entitled a fiscal note. I don't want to imply that LBO created that, because I did. So don't blame them if the numbers are wrong. In the county jails, at this time, the county of conviction, that sheriff can request someone to stay in the county jail instead of going in MDOC custody at sentencing. If they do that, the state does not pay any fee to the county. This bill would also expand that to a request by the county or sheriff or board of supervisors outside of the county of conviction. So I'm from Tishomingo County. If I got convicted in another county, maybe the sheriff or board of supervisors could request that I serve my time in the county jail. The MDOC commissioner can certainly deny that if he doesn't want to grant that request. But if they allow it, they're not obligated to pay for housing me. So that's a revenue positive issue for the state of Mississippi if I'm staying in the county jail. That's the first part of the bill. The second part addresses that MDOC can house inmates in the county jail when they have a capacity issue. They currently pay a maximum of $20 or contracted rate. In most cases, it's $20. The problem we've run into is, particularly in our larger counties, we are averaging 80, 90 or more inmates in county jail that are MDOC inmates, and they're paying $20 a day. The cities in DeSoto County pay $35 a day. So it is really an unfair situation to DeSoto County, as well as any other counties where we have inmates. We're averaging 900 to 1,000 inmates on a daily basis in our county jails that are MDOC inmates. This bill would allow the first 5 days after a sentencing order has been sent to MDOC that there's no charge. That'd be revenue positive for the state. After that 5th day, on the 6th day, we would raise that amount to $25. If MDOC does not pick up their inmate within 30 days of that, it goes to $30. If MDOC fails to pick them up another 30 days, it goes to $35 and stays at $35 per day until MDOC picks up their inmate. Basically, we are balancing the books of an agency on the backs of the county sheriffs. And we want to make sure that we come get the inmates, because one of the things that happens is that these inmates are not yet classified. So your county jails are potentially holding someone who is a close custody inmate or may have health issues, mental health issues. This is simply an expedite picking up our inmates. I know MDOC is working on this, but for 3 years, I've brought this bill. For 3 years, we have the same issue. And if we're going to leave them in the county jail, we just need to pay market rate. I'll yield any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Sparks. Does any member have a question for Senator Sparks on the proposal? No questions, Senator. Senator Turner Forward, thank you. That's correct. That's existing law. If the county has requested that an MDOC inmate remain in their county jail, that's been existing for quite a while, that we don't pay. The state does not pay the county because the county made that request. There should be one laying there beside you. I apologize. I laid one before I stood up, but for MDOC, it could be a revenue positive issue. If there's someone that goes to the county jail and MDOC is not paying anything, that's obviously not a cost to them. As it relates to the bill as presented, if they will promptly pick up their inmate, it will be cost positive, because if they pick them up in the first 25 days, it is a revenue neutral situation. After that 25th day, it's at $25, so it'd be a $5 increase. The biggest thing is that the goal is to expedite, because the statute already says that MDOC is to promptly remove them.
Well, that would be a question probably for them to answer. The issue is the counties are suffering right now because of that. And for 3 years, I've been asking this question, and we still have 900 to 1,000 inmates on a regular basis in county jails, that many of them have been there for several days. And it becomes a real issue when someone is a close custody inmate or needs mental health treatment, and they're not classified, they're just sitting in the county jail. We just want MDOC to come get them because they have the services available to treat them and to classify them. I can't answer that for MDOC. I just know that in the 3 years that I've been here, it's basically been a similar number. And I don't want to manage their inmate population, but I don't want them leaving them in the county jails either. Thank you.
Any more questions? Hearing none, the motion from Senator Polk is titled sufficient do pass. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2645, and I'm happy to explain that unless Senator Wiggins, you feel a strong urge to explain that bill. If you do, I'll certainly recognize you for it. It does have a reverse repealer in it because of our discussions the other day. And
all yours, Mr. Chairman.
okay, thank you, Senator. This is an attempt to increase some of our assistant DAs and criminal investigators. Right now, we've got some district attorneys that are really struggling with caseloads and backlogs on cases, and certainly in our efforts to take care of criminal matters. We know about the stories here in Hinds County, but we've got other places in our state where they're getting backlogged, and some of it's due to the fact that they don't have enough ADAs and criminal investigators. There was a proposal that was presented to Judiciary A. We debated it at length the other day, and fortunately, we're able to get statistics about how many ADAs there were per caseload and per violent crime. And I've been over that with Senator Wiggins. We had a good brief, healthy discussion rather the other day after the committee, and looking at that data, I think that we can put some realistic, we can come up with some numbers that make sense. And I think Senator Wiggins, I don't want to speak for you, but I think we agree that this needs to be something relative, because you don't want one district attorney handling, let's just say, 800 cases per ADA, and another one handling 150 and give them the same amount of ADAs. And when we looked at the requests they made, there were some that were just kind of way off the charts, ridiculous, and some were pretty kind of lean and mean. So I think with a little bit more work and a little bit more study on this, we ought to be able to come up with a number of ADAs that are needed per cases. And again, we're factoring in the number of cases they have and the number of violent crime cases, because those, as any former DA will tell you, or any current DA, that they take a lot more work. You have some of the violent crimes, they're a little bit more difficult. So it's already got the reverse repealer in it. I don't know what this is going to cost, because it'll depend on how many ADAs we have to have. But is there discussion on that bill? Senator Wiggins, you're recognized.
May I add to that, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Just so the members understand, what you see in the bill is the result of an agreement by the prosecutors throughout the state. They came together, agreed, and this discussion happened in the Judiciary A committee. And so where you see the changes, that was an agreement made by all the DAs throughout the state. So we have that. Then, as Senator Hobson said, we had discussion in the Judiciary A committee about what he talked about, and there's the costs associated with it. We had a fiscal note, which the fiscal note, as the bill stood, said approximately $6 million. So that's $6 million going forward. So talking with Senator Chairman Hobson, we're getting there. Got a reverse repealer, but we're in talk with the prosecutors.
Thank you, Senator Wiggins. Senator DeBar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment at the proper time.
Okay. Any more discussion on the proposal before we hear the amendment? Senator Butler of the 37th. 36th. Thank you. I'm sorry.
One of the questions that I have is that in section 2, where it say any district attorney may appoint a full-time criminal investigator, does that apply to all, regardless of the number of cases they have, if they see a need?
Can you repeat the question so I make sure I understand it?
Okay, I said, does this apply to all district attorneys if they have a need for a full-time person?
The districts?
District attorney, if they have a caseload, whereas they don't reach the number, but they have in their with their cases, they've had so many that they're behind on, and they still hire full-time.
Well, they can't hire it without the funds. We'll authorize in the legislature how many ADAs they have. And I think that's what I was trying to explain earlier, is that the number of ADAs that are there would be based on data that we have now about how many crimes they have and how many violent crimes. I mean, they can't just go out and hire an ADA. You're talking about criminal investigators or ADAs?
Criminal investigators.
Yeah, that's the same situation there for us authorizing the number of criminal investigators they have.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Butler. Senator Suber, on the bill before the amendment.
Just one quick question. So we're adjusting the ADAs, we're removing some and adding some to the districts. Is that,
Well, some of them, look, we have one DA that has, I think, 6 ADAs and requested 6 more ADAs.
right?
No, we had one district out of our 23 districts that requested 0. We had several that requested 1 or 2, maybe a few requested 3 or maybe 4. And the fact is, you can look at the data and tell it's not based on, some just wanted ADAs. And
Right.
if the state's going to pay for it, I mean, why not? But I think we've got to be good stewards of the tax dollars. We want to make sure our criminals are prosecuted, but we've got to be smart with the way we do this. And I think we can look at these numbers and make a pretty good calculation about how many ADAs a district would need.
Well, and I'd worked with our district attorney and they'd kind of put a proposal together showing, the need that they had. And then, but we looked at some other districts where, they didn't really have a lot going on. So I didn't know if we were, some of those districts, if they might need less ADAs as opposed to some others would, I know needs another 1 or 2.
Okay, none of these would require anybody eliminating an ADA. However, this is something that came up in our committee meeting the other day, and I told Senator Wiggins about this, or we discussed it, I should say. And that is, next year, I think it'll be next year, there'll be a healthy discussion about judicial redistricting. It's got to take place within 5 years of the last census. And no later than 2025, but probably next year, we will do a judicial redistricting. And I was Judd A chair when we did it 9 years ago, or whenever that was, and went in and looked at the caseloads of all the districts, not just the ADAs, but the circuit judges too, and chancery judges, and tried to make some calculation about how many more, if any, chancellors and circuit court judges we needed. That's what we need to do here. And as a matter of fact, I think next year, whenever it takes place, the districts may change. I mean, I would not be opposed to 2 things personally. I would be in favor of getting to as many coterminous districts between chancery and circuit as we could. And I would be in favor of, if we needed to move a county or 2 here or there, because, just by way of example, you might have one district that's got a light caseload, and you got a district next door that's got 3 or 4 counties, and they got a heavy caseload. You could pull one county out of there and move it into the other circuit district. And of course, the DA would affect them too. And the caseloads would balance out a lot better. So that's what I'm hoping that the Judiciary Committee next year will be looking at pretty strongly. And I think that'll be us, hopefully we would be doing the right thing and being good stewards of our tax dollars, and not just saying, let's just add on. Let's try to make it make sense. And that if we're spending dollars, we're doing it effectively, and the caseloads are balanced, both for judges and DAs.
Sir, thank you for your work.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Senator Suber. If no other questions on the bill, Senator DeBar is recognized for proposed amendment, or at least what's the amendment, Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment would be to delete lines 121 through 126. And procedurally, Mr. Chairman, if this amendment were to succeed, this is double referred, it'd go back to Judd A. I don't want the bill to die regardless. Would that be a killing amendment if, I don't know if it would.
Well,
if
I
after-
think Judd A is meeting after us today.
So I didn't know if I had to come back to appropriations after it met through Judd A.
Let me get back to, let me see which. Yeah. Which line, hang on one second. Which line, Senator? And to do 121 to 126. And do what with that? Delete it?
Delete that. If you recall from our Judd A discussion, that was involving a dispute between the district attorney's office and George County. And what this amendment would do, or what the language would do, would require the board of supervisors to pay in perpetuity for a DA salary, which and expenses.
Okay.
And Senator Wiggins and I are caught in the middle of this situation, as we discussed in Judd A. And so that's the rationale for removing this
Okay.
language.
You're recognized for that amendment. And that might affect, council's telling that may affect line 107, 106 and 107 too. So we would need to amend that as well. Send that back to the original language. That would be part of your amendment, Senator DeBar. Okay. Any discussion on the
May I
amendment?
speak friendly on that?
Senator Wiggins, you recognize to speak.
I agree with the amendment, but to Senator Suber and the points being made here, this Senator Suber's hit on things that are an issue, which is why Chairman Hobson and myself are working through this. But in the case where this amendment is, yeah, the George County supervisors have pulled their funding and there's a dispute in that circuit court district. Now, which Senator DeBar and I are certainly don't want to be in the middle of it, but it's an issue. And these are the things that the DAs and I will say the supervisors need to work through before we get to a final bill on this. So
Well,
I support the amendment, but those are the things, to your point, Mr. Chairman, as good stewards of the taxpayer dollars, the data and these issues, we can't just willy-nilly go add people or else we'll break the bank. And that's a fact. So I support the amendment and we will add it. We are meeting afterwards and we'll take that up.
Thank you, Senator Wiggins. Any more discussion on the amendment from Senator DeBar? Senator DeBar, you recognize.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to make sure, but if this is amended, it goes back to Judd A. and Judd A passes it, does it have to come back here again? I just want to make sure the bill's not dying.
No, not if it passes as amended, unless it's amended again by Judd A, and then it would,
All right.
we would have to have another meeting or it would die.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any more questions or discussion? If not, Senator DeBar's motion is before us. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Now on the bill on final passage in the committee, any more discussion? If not, Senator Wiggins, your motion is thought sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That bill be reported. Next is Senate Bill 2720. This is a bill proposed by Senator Blunt, came through the Public Property Committee. It's to allow the Secretary of State, which has a tax forfeited land fund for lands that it's received and that have sold, they've got a fund. And this would allow them to utilize, oh gosh, I think it's 10% or withhold 10% for the cost of tree removal. I do want to make an amendment to this, but I just decided I'll do it on the floor. I want any discussion about tree removal on tax forfeited lands to be decided by the Mississippi Forestry Commission. And what would happen is on some of these derelict lands that have been forfeited, sometimes you get old rotten trees and a neighboring property is potentially encumbered by it or could be hurt by it, and nobody's going to be willing to take it down. This would allow them to utilize some funds, to take down old trees that may fall and injure other properties or other people. I do want there to be language, and I've already got an amendment prepared with the floor, so it doesn't have to go back to committee to include the Mississippi Forestry Commission making that decision. But as the bill is written here, is there any discussion on it? If not, the motion is titled sufficient to pass. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2722, and I will call on Senator Michelle to explain that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 2722 was double referred and has already passed the Public Property Committee. It would authorize the Department of Finance Administration to purchase land if they so deem. The land is located to the west of the Wright and Ferguson property, which the state has acquired and we're renovating currently for our Capitol Police Headquarters. It has the standard language that it must be the average of 2 appraisals to be performed. And the state must retain the mineral rights. The good thing about this tract of land, it's already unimproved. There's no cost of demolition on it. And it is paved and fenced. Well, it's 165 parking spaces on it, all right, currently. So we could use it the moment we acquire it if the Department of Finance so deems. Be glad to yield any questions.
Anybody got any questions for Senator Michelle? If not, Senator, motion.
Title sufficient to pass Senate Bill 2722.
Motion is to title sufficient to pass. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2723. Senator Turner Ford, do you want to explain that bill? Yeah, why don't you grab a microphone at the end of the table? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is based on a request coming from DFA for authority to purchase property within the Capitol complex on High Street and North Street. It has the standard language that 2 appraisals will be required and that the property will be based on the sale of the property or purchase will be based on fair market value. Now I will yield for questions.
Any questions for Senator Turner Ford? Senator Norwood, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question is relative, I guess, to 2722 and 2723, but 2722 is gone. What, I think it was stated that 2722 will be used for parking. Will you be used for parking? 2723, are we buying this with a specific purpose in mind?
I think that the purpose would be parking also potentially.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Norwood. Other questions or discussion? Senator Turner Ford, you have a motion.
Title sufficient to pass.
Motion is title sufficient to pass. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2777. I'll call on Senator DeBar to explain it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This committee substitute brings forward the code sections for school attendance officers. It does have a reverse repeal in it. As you probably have read and have heard, got emails, the SAO salaries is quite low. I believe the starting pay for a bachelor's degree, SAO is roughly 19,000. This is the language in Senator Simmons's bill here before you. Increases that significantly. Those will not be the final numbers, will be subject to appropriations. And as we work through the process, we'll see how much money we can get appropriated. So this just brings back forward the code sections for SAOs. It's the only vehicle we have alive at this point in time in case we wanted to do anything to help increase their pay. That is an explanation. I'll yield for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions of the committee members? Hearing none.
Title sufficient to pass committee sub.
Motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, Senate Bill 2367. And Senator DeBar, you and I've had some discussions on this. I'll recognize you first, and I may add a few comments afterwards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the Public School Facilities Grant Program. If you recall, last year, we took up this bill. It's currently in its form, it's a loan program, a zero interest loan. This would convert it to a grant program and require the Department of Education to administer the program itself versus contracting outside the department for management of the program. There's no new money. It just makes it a grant program, and none of the other terms and conditions will change regardless. That's an explanation, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield for any questions.
Senator, one of the things we discussed today was the loan program and administering the program. And I think we could probably just take, if you want to, we could take care of this on the floor to make changes to that program. I've got some concerns about the grant versus loan, but if rather than, you don't plan to meet again today, do you?
I will be meeting later this afternoon.
You will?
Yes, sir.
What I would like to do then is keep alive, I think all the loan language is still in the bill. I'm not positive, but I want to make sure. I would have the amendment offer to include all the loan language in the bill and put a reverse repeater in it because I'm not sold. We need to discuss the grant program versus the loan program. So I want to make sure that language is alive so we can discuss it later. So that would be the amendment at this time if education is meeting again later today. Any discussion on the proposed amendment? Senator Polk offers that amendment, and if not, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Now, final passage, Senator DeBar.
Move title sufficient, do pass committee sub.
Motion, title sufficient, do pass committee sub. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is the Senate Bill 2359, and I'll call on Senator Williams to explain that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the Mississippi Main Street Revitalization Act. We did this last year, and this is a continuation of that. There has been a kind of a rework of the bill. Last year, I think what we did is just appropriate a certain amount of money for each of the Main Street associations that qualified for it. This year, it will be a competitive grant situation with a maximum of $500,000 per applicant award. There'll be a 20% match required with this. DFA will accept applications through the 1st of December of this year. We as a legislature will look at that next year and make decisions and those awards based upon that. As I said, this is the second year that we've done that. The committee sub that's also present, what has been changed in the language since the original was that we've gone to cities and towns in the association that are less than 10,000. The first $100,000 of the grant would be only a 10% match, just trying to give them a little bit of an opportunity to get involved. Anything over $100,000 in those municipalities would be subject to the 20% match. I would be glad to entertain any questions.
Anyone have questions? Senator Butler, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there a maximum amount of money that's we're gonna put in this?
This is not an appropriation or funding bill. This is just an enabling bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Butler. Senator McCon, you're recognized. It would help.
Thank you for your work, Senator Williams. As you know, I had some concerns last year and I continue to have those concerns now. The first question I would have is from last year, when the passage of that bill, how many additional communities did we have that joined and became designated? Do you know?
My understanding is currently we have 48 active members. I'm not sure if it was that many last year, but we have 15 that are in the process of becoming a member. So I'm going to make the assumption that at least those 15 have risen since last year.
Do we know how much that application process cost?
I think it's somewhat tiered. I think it's going to be pretty hefty. It's about $20,000 up.
So we're requiring for them to pay this in order to get some of the public funds that we're putting in this grant program.
Well, if you look at it that way, we've got this, it's administered through the Main Street Association because they're kind of the premier ones out there. They've got the education, the vetting process. All these people have to go through this. These communities have to go through this. And on the other side of it, basically, they're able to leverage that dollars a lot better than not going through it. So I think that them going through it gives us kind of the best leverage of the dollars that we've got. It's hopefully perceived by the communities that join as a sustainable thing that we're not doing just to go get some grant money. You know, I think that defeats the purpose of it. We're wanting to do it so we can sustain it. And as we go, our tourist economy that is thriving and goes, more of these communities come on. And I think that's just we're going to have 15 more than we did last year.
But at the end of the day, though, so an economic development district, maybe like Fondren or a chamber in like Newton, that doesn't want to pay and let's just honestly say over 20,000 to become that designation, they wouldn't be eligible to any of these funds.
The way this bill is written, that's exactly correct, Senator. If
From last year, do we know where those funds have gone from last year's program?
I do not know that. I know that there was some delay in those funds being administered, so I believe we're on the front end of that. We probably don't have data to tell us what we've gotten off of those funds.
And as far as the application process, though, all of those funds for those applications would actually go into Main Street. It wouldn't go back into what we're doing here, the 20 some odd thousand it would be.
That's my understanding, yes, sir. It is my understanding that the wards on these funds would go, 2% can be held by DFA for administrative fees. The rest of it goes to the communities, is what I understood. I think we had a conversation earlier. I tried to find clarity on that, as I understand that. I would entertain conversation if there might be a way to help the communities that aren't part of Main Street, that we could maybe allow some of these funds to be accessible to them, if there's an avenue to do that.
We have substantially more than 48 plus 15 municipalities across the state. And let's be honest, every municipality is fighting the same fight with their Main Street area. So at the end of the day, do we know what percentage from across the state we're looking at that this is helping? So 48 plus 15, so we're, whatever that is on the percentage, we have well over 200 and some odd municipalities, if I remember right.
Well, I think as a percentage of municipalities, you're at 20 to 25% of them. I would try to look at the tourist dollars that our state generates and what the percentage there is. There again, going back to the premise that the leverage of the dollars in the areas where we've got greater tourist attractions, all the communities, anything we can do to help them, we want to do that. But I think that we look at the entities that are part of the Main Street Association, they're able to leverage those dollars and get a greater return on it.
Do we know what percentage we allowed for administration last year for Main Street?
If unless I'm mistaken, 2%.
2% went to Main Street. What's in this bill?
No. This bill is before us. 0 goes to Main Street, 2% goes to DFA. That's the information I was given. I can double check that.
Last year was 2% that went to Main Street.
No, sir. I'm not sure. I did not ask about last year's. I will find out and let you know, though.
I don't want to kill the bill, Mr. Chairman, so I'm not going to offer any amendments right now, but I would entertain additional discussion among several people at this time after this.
And I as well, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McCon. Any other questions or discussion? If not, Senator Williams, your motion.
Title sufficient, do pass committee sub, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 2750. This is a bill I filed on AEDs, automatic external defibrillators. I know we've got them in some public buildings. And I was requested to file this bill to see if we could get more AED machines in buildings. I think the discussion we had in public health the other day was they're pretty, I call it idiot proof for me, but they're pretty easy to operate. I've never utilized one, but I think as I've kind of looked into this may end up costing more than I anticipated initially when I filed it. This is a grant program, so obviously it's only going to be as good as how much money we put in it, but I want to keep the bill alive. I need to get a better handle about how many public buildings we're talking about, and maybe need to get parameters on what, how large of a building, because we've got a lot of small public buildings that may not have enough people to justify putting an AED machine in, but nevertheless, just an attempt to keep it alive for right now and look at other costs and how much might be put in the grant program. I'd like to do that. So Senator Jackson, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have one here at the Capitol?
We do. We've got one apparently on this side and one on the other side too. And I may need it this afternoon if things keep going the way they're going right now. Yeah. Just don't let Senator Moran operate it on me, okay? Any other questions? Senator Polk. Motion is title sufficient to pass. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. One more bill that you've got. It's a proposed committee sub. This is 2580 that deals with changes to our scholarships, particularly MTAG and HELP. And there were some things that were proposed, I think, from a joint committee last week. I don't know there's been enough time to really fully discuss this, probably more of an off-season discussion. I do want to have if we can keep the bill alive, and what I've done in this proposed committee sub is bring forward the sections on MTAG and HELP, and we can discuss these as we go through the process and see if there's an appetite to increase our financial aid. I think we've increased financial aid in the last several years from about 30-something million, low 30s when I was handling the bills for IHL and financial aid to we're, I think, over 50 million now. And there's a lot of reasons. I've explained those on the floor and I won't explain them all now, but there are a lot of reasons that that's jumping up pretty quickly and dramatically. But we have had task force and study committees on this, but to try to get to some place where everybody's, we're doing the best job for our students, and also it's manageable within the budget too. So this just the proposed committee sub before you is simply bringing forward the code sections on those two areas. Any discussion about it? If not, the motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And I think, we got one other one. Senator Boyd, you were here now. Thank you. Let's go back to Senate Bill 2167. I'll recognize Senator Boyd to explain.
Thank you, Senator Hobson. My apologies for not being here earlier. Busy day. This bill that is before you is a bill that came out of the Women, Children's and Families hearings that we did this summer. This is a bill that regards IDEA Part C. As most of you are aware, IDEA Part B, many of you are familiar with it that are in the Education Committee. It deals with children from disabilities who are ages 3 and above. This bill is actually Part C, and it deals with IDEA Part C, and it covers children with disabilities that are from birth to 3. We had testimony this summer that showed that we are only serving about 1.5% of the population of children that are in the state of Mississippi under this program, whereas we should be serving anywhere from 10 to 15%. So there's a significant deficit of what we're serving. We have been not in compliance with federally on Part C for a number of years now. And so this is a committee that would look at getting us into compliance and looking to see what a better way we could do and run Part C. This is a study committee, and it has the members of the study committee outlined, which really pulls from the best and brightest at our universities, and then also all the experts in the state that really have to do with early intervention. So that's kind of the gist of the bill. The original bill before had a pilot program in there. We took that pilot program out, and we just have the study committee in this bill. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Senator Boyd? Yes, questions. Senator Butler, you're recognized.
Thank you. I don't think this is a task force study committee.
Yes, sir.
That's all it is?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Butler. Any more questions? If not, is there a motion? Motion is title sufficient to pass committee sub. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, and I'll entertain a motion to rise and report. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you.